This is the Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, Bo Cook from Loan Market, BTZD, the official apparel partner of the Paracave Podcast, and the Parramatta Times, the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. Troy Warner here with another tipping podcast, and the team lists are out. Team list Tuesday, the third last one of the year for the regular season. And look, let's start off with the NRLW competition, as it is now round 5 in that competition. And we see the Cowboys take on the Sharks at Queensland Country Bank Stadium on Saturday up there in Townsville. And look, this is going to be a great game. The Sharks in 9th position, the Cowboys in 7th position. Two new teams in this competition, once again playing for the first time against each other. The Sharks have actually lost the last 3 games of the season, only by very close margins, except for last week against the Roosters. They lost 36-12. But the Cowboys have had a pretty sort of up and down season. They lost to the Titans in the opening round. They beat last year's premiers, the Newcastle Knights. They lost to the Broncos badly in a Queensland derby, 40 points to 12, and then defeated one of the other new teams that was high-flying, the West Tigers, 16 points to 12. So, look, this is going to be an interesting game. I think, though, that the Sharks may just get this win in this game, but the Cowboys, they'll give it all they got. They've got some great little players there in their side, but I just think that the Sharkies will get this win in this game between these two new sides. Let's go into the next game, and it sees the West Tigers take on the Dragons. So one of those new teams, the West Tigers in 5th position, they started off the season really well with a win against the Eels, and the Sharks have had a couple of losses in a row now. Some close games there against the Raiders, 28-22, and the Cowboys, as I just said, 16 points to 12. The Dragons, however, they've only had the one win of the season so far this year. They went down in Golden Point to the Raiders, 19 points to 18 last weekend. And the Tigers, this game will be actually played at CommBank Stadium in Sydney on Saturday, 10-1, before the main game between the Dolphins and the Tigers, also at CommBank Stadium on Saturday. So a double header there for Tigers fans. I think the Tigers will get this win here in this game. Great to see Bo Vetty-Welsh back in at fullback there, one of their great players in the Tigers side. I think the Tigers will get this win on their home deck against the Dragons. Good news for Dragons coach Jamie Soward. He has re-signed for 2 years with the Dragons NRLW side. So congratulations to Jamie on that. Some great news there for Dragons fans and the Dragons club. The next game sees the Titans take on the Roosters. Now, the Roosters, they're star-studded this side. This game's up on the Gold Coast, Seabus Super Stadium, Gold Coast, and this game is also before the main game in the NRL, the Titans and the Panthers, so another double header there. So great for those Titans fans up there. Look, the Titans, they were high flying at the start of the year. They lost their first game against the Roosters, actually. So this is the second time that these two sides have played. So they lost on that occasion to 38 points to 12. And since then, they had 3 wins in a row, and they lost last weekend against the Knights. The Roosters, they started off the season... the Titans, they started off the season with 3 wins in a row and then lost last weekend against the Knights. The Roosters, they started off the season with a win against the Broncos. They lost against the Raiders, one of the new sides in the competition, and then 2 big wins against the Dragons and Sharks. So they're in a little bit of form. So this probably, I think, might be the form game of the NRLW round this weekend. Next to the next game that I'm just about to talk about. But the Roosters, they're playing some great footy, scoring a lot of points. They've got a star-studded side. I think they'll get the win in this one. And that next game that I am talking about is the Knights and Broncos. So the second place Knights, the defending premiers in the NRLW, against the Broncos. This should be a cracker of a game too, and this game is again before the NRL as well, the Knights and the Rabbitohs. So some great fixtures for rugby league fans this weekend, with some NRLW and some NRL being played at these games. So the Newcastle Knights, they take on the Brisbane Broncos. Caitlin Johnston comes back from suspension, I think it was, and back into this side. Hannah Southwell is the captain and lock. Her sister Jessie is the halfback. Tamika Upton there at fullback. So they've got some strike power there. Yasmin Clydesdale in the second row as well, representative player. So, look, they're going to be hard to beat, the defending premiers, especially up there at home, in what is to be a sellout crowd for that game. So, Newcastle will be hoping that a lot of their fans will get there nice and early at 12, or before 12 o'clock, and watch this game and cheer on their NRLW team. The Broncos, Gail Broughton is back into their side after having personal leave last week. So she partners Ali Brigginshaw in the halves there. I'm going to go Newcastle in this one. I think they will get the win in this one. The Broncos, they had a tough game against the Eels last week. They got away with a win, 22 points to 12, which sort of kick-started their season after their win against the Cowboys the week before. So they've had 2 in a row. The Newcastle Knights also 2 in a row. I'm going to go the Newcastle Knights in this one, which should be a cracker of a game, and it's at home. The final game in the NRLW sees the Raiders, who have been playing some great footy for a new side this year in the NRLW, in third position, take on the last-placed 10th Eels in this game. So the Eels, they unfortunately haven't won a game this year. They've lost to the Tigers, Dragons, Knights and Broncos. Last weekend's game was probably the closest that they have come, 22 points to 12. The other games, they've had some big scores scored against them. Kennedy Cherrington is still out suspended for that dangerous throw tackle. I think this is the second week of her suspension. And Elsie Albert as well is out, who made her Parramatta NRLW debut last weekend, but looks like she has re-injured that calf of hers. So she is out of this side, replaced by Madeline Jones in the front row. Rachel Pearson made her NRL Eels debut, NRLW Eels debut last weekend, Rachel Pearson. She's the captain. So she kicked a cracker of a goal from the sideline. So she's got some great goal-kicking skills there. But these Canberra Raiders side, they have had 3 wins in a row after they're losing their first game against the Sharks. They are back. They've had some great wins against the Dragons in Golden Point last week. They beat the Tigers, another new side in this competition, and they also defeated the Roosters as well to get their first win. I think that one was at home in Canberra. This game is also in Canberra as well. And again, before the Raiders Bulldogs NRL game. So fans, get there early, support your NRLW side. Look, I hate to say it, I really hope that Parramatta can get up to a winning start in this season. They're going to have to do it very, very shortly if they want to get into the semi-finals, because time is ticking away. I think they can still make it, but they're going to have to start winning every single game from now on. But this Canberra Raiders side, they're playing some good footy. Their halves, Zahara Tamara, is really playing some great footy. Captain there, Ash Quinlan as well in the halves, and the Dally M leader at the moment, Samaima Taufa as well. What a leader she is, playing up against her former club in the Eels. So, look, unfortunately, I think the Raiders will get this win, but I really hope the Eels make it difficult for the Raiders on their home turf, and maybe, who knows, jag a win. But it's going to be tough for the Eels. I think Canberra will get the win in that one. So just recapping those winners in the NRLW competition, I think the Sharks, the Tigers, the Roosters, the Knights, and the Eels in that one. Alrighty, time for the NRL, and this week we see the Brisbane Broncos having a bye. They had a massive win against Parramatta last week, 54 points to 10. So they've got the week off, their last bye of the season. And it is round 25, and it is Daniel Anderson round. So the NRL supporting the Daniel Anderson Fund this weekend, which is great to see. I think in New Zealand, for the Warriors Seagulls game, they've renamed the stadium Daniel Anderson Stadium in Auckland, so that is a great touch there. Obviously, Daniel was a former coach of the New Zealand Warriors, took them to the grand final in 2002, so former coach there. He's highly regarded in New Zealand for what he did for the game of rugby league over there. So a great touch there by the Warriors to rename that stadium Daniel Anderson Stadium. That game, after this first one, the Cowboys take on the Sharks up in Townsville. Now, the Cowboys, coming off the bye last week, they will want to get back into the winner's circle. They've had a couple of losses in a row, and they find themselves in 9th position at the moment, and they will want to get into that top 8. And being a home game, they will want to get this win and get into that top 8, because every game from now on is very crucial, not only for the Cowboys, but for every side to either get into that top 8 or stay in that top 8. So every home game you definitely want to win. The last time these two sides met was earlier this year. The Sharks got the chocolates that day, 44 points to 6. I think that was a different Cowboys team there at the start of the year. You won't see a massive scoreline like this one again. The Sharks, they're coming off a couple of wins, a good one against the Rabbitohs in Perth, and one against the Titans as well, 36 points to 6. So they're coming off a couple of wins after having a trio of losses, which saw them maybe drop out of the top 8. But they're just hanging in there at 5th position at the moment. But I think the Cowboys will get this win here. Jason Taumalolo, I think he joins the 250 club and a one club player for the Cowboys. I think he's a fourth Cowboy to do that. So congratulations to Jason on reaching that milestone. Great to see. Jeremiah Nanai has been named. He's come back for injury. He's named in the second row. So great to see him back as well. And look, I'm going to tip the Cowboys in this game. I think it's going to be a tough ask for the Sharks. They have been playing some alright football the last couple of weeks, but the Cowboys at home, they are very tough to beat, so I'm going to go the Cowboys in that one. The first game on Friday night, as I said, Daniel Anderson Stadium in Auckland, the Warriors take on the Sea Eagles. Now, mathematically, the Sea Eagles can still make the top 8, but they have to win every game. The Warriors, high flying. This game is also a sellout as well, so great to see big numbers over there in New Zealand, really getting behind their team. Great to see. So it's a sellout over there. So the Sea Eagles are certainly going to know where they are playing. That is for sure. Chance Nickel Clockstar returns to fullback after his concussion protocols from the previous week. So he returns back at fullback. So a big in for them. Mitch Barnett is out. And Mitch Barnett is out. Bunty Afoa replaces him in the front row. So, look, the Manly Sea Eagles, Ben Travojevic and Brad Parker are out. Morgan Harper comes into the centre position. So, look, it's going to be very tough. Still no, obviously, Tom Travojevic, he's out for the season. So, Jake Arthur has been named on the interchange bench along with Dean Madison, Aaron Woods, Ethan Bullimore. Look, this is going to be a massive ask for the Manly Sea Eagles. The Warriors, they're just playing some great footy week in, week out. The last time these two teams met was last year, so this is the first time they've played this year. The Sea Eagles got the win that day, but the Warriors, I think they're going for 6 in a row, so massive effort there. Massive effort there to get 6 in a row, especially in this NRL competition. So, look, the Warriors, they're playing some great footy. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, well, he's just scoring some amazing tries in that corner, doing some amazing leaps, jumps into that corner. And thank goodness we don't have that rule. If you touch the corner post, it's no try these days. Otherwise, he would be massively denied. But scoring some great tries there. Sean Johnson, he's having a wow of a season. Potential Dally M winner for this year. And Adam Fanua-Blake leading the engine room. He is probably, some have said that he is probably the best prop in the game. Obviously, you've got Big Tino Fa'asuamaleaui from the Titans and also Payne Haas as well from the Broncos. But a lot of people are saying that the Warriors' success is due to Adam Fanua-Blake up there in the front row. So I'm going to tip the Warriors in this one. The next game sees my Parramatta Eels take on the Sydney Roosters, 10th versus 11th at CommBank Stadium, 8 p.m. Massive game for both clubs. Both clubs can still make the 8, but the loser of this game will be done for the season. So the Eels, they are struggling at the moment. They had a massive loss against the Broncos. They got a win against the Dragons and then 2 big losses against the Storm and the Cowboys before a 1-point win against the Titans at CommBank Stadium. The Roosters, they've come back into a little bit of form. They've had a win against the Sea Eagles and Dolphins, who beat them in the first round of the competition. And look, the last time these two sides met was way back in the start of the season. I think it was round 4 or 5. It was a Thursday night, I think it was. The Roosters got the chocolates over the Eels, 28 points to 20 that day. So the Eels, they'll be wanting to get this win, not only to keep their season alive, but get some confidence back into the side. It's going to be a massive ask, though, because Mitchell Moses is out with a fractured eye socket / cheekbone, so that is going to be a massive ask. Andrew Davey is also out as well due to concussion protocols. The good news for the Eels, though, is that Micah Sevo is back and Regan Campbell-Gillard is back from suspension. So their 4-week suspensions are over. So they're back. So it's a little bit of good news there. Interesting lineup for Parramatta. Dylan Brown has been moved to halfback with Dijon Arcee into 5'8". So I thought they may have left Dylan where he is naturally. That's his position. He's 5'8", and put Arcee in at halfback. But Brad Arthur has gone for that combination. I also thought that maybe Joe Offahengawi might be on the bench, Ryan Madison to start in the second row, and Jermaine Hopgood to be put there back at lock. But he's gone with Madison off the bench, along with Wiremu Greg, Brendan Hands, and Luca Moretti. So, interesting there. As I said, must-win game for both clubs. But, look, Parramatta cost me a perfect round last week. If you were checking out my tips for the week, I think they can do it this weekend against the Roosters. They have to. Clash of the fullbacks might be interesting. Clinton Gutherson versus James Tedesco. That'll be an interesting one there. So the front rowers, Regan Campbell-Gillard up against Jared Warrior-Hargreaves. Junior Paolo up against Lindsay Collins. That'll be an interesting battle there. So a couple of good battles there. I'm going to tip Parramatta in this one in a close one. The next game sees the West Tigers take on the Dolphins at CommBank Stadium. So, look, the poor old Tigers see themselves still on the bottom of the ladder at the moment. These two sides are both struggling to get a win. This is the first time that the Tigers have played the Dolphins in the competition. The Tigers have had 5 straight losses. The Dolphins have had 4 straight losses. So, look, this is going to be a very difficult one for, I think, the Dolphins, actually, to be honest. They've got a lot of massive outs. Ray Stone, Kenny Bromwich, Jeremy Marshall-King, Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, and as well. So, some massive losses for them. There's also talk about possibly Felice Kafusi not playing. Ewan Akins into the second row. Mark Nichols goes to lock. And Sean O'Sullivan's still there. And Jermaine Asako, he's been scoring some points this year. He's on the wing. But I think I think the Tigers can get this win against the Dolphins. They've been playing. They haven't got the results that they've wanted, but they really gave it to the Warriors last week in Hamilton in New Zealand. They only just lost to the Raiders, and they really gave it against the Rabbitohs as well, before the Rabbitohs run away with that win. So, look, I think the Tigers, they've been playing some good footy. It's pretty much the same side that they've had last week. I'm going to go the Tigers in this one against the Dolphins. The Tigers playing at one of their home grounds in CommBank Stadium, which I think that finishes this year. The next game on Saturday sees the Titans take on the Panthers. So, look, this one could be anything, so they say. Back into the Panthers side, Jerome Luai, Mitch Kenny. So Tyrone Peachy into the centre position. So it's a pretty much full strength side with what the Panthers have been going with all year. The Titans, well, they've got a few outs. Kieran Foran, Tanner Boyd. So basically their halves are out, which is no good there. AJ Brimson has been named as 19th man. Whether he plays or not, it will have to wait and see. Tino Fasil Malawi is moved back to lock. Jamin Jolliffe is in the prop position. Mo Fadawaka returns from his suspension. Jaden Campbell goes into halfback, and NRL making his debut in the NRL, Tom Weaver goes into halfback. So a massive ask for him to run around this side against the Premiers. Look, there's not really much to say here. The Titans, they have got just a lot of pride to play for, and the Panthers, they will want to play for that minor premiership. So going to tip the Panthers in that one. The last game on Saturday sees the Dragons down in Wollongong at Wynn Stadium take on the Melbourne Storm. Now, look, the Storm, they had a massive win against the Raiders, 48 points to 2. They lost to the Panthers. They smashed the Eels. So they've gone win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. Win-loss, win-loss, win, I should say, in their last 5. The Dragons have had 3 straight losses in a row. Their only win in the last 5 weeks was against the Tigers, 18 points to 14. Now, I do say that the Dragons do play better down in Wollongong than anywhere else. Zach Lomax returns from a shoulder injury back into the centre position, so that's a good in for them. Look, I think, though, the Melbourne Storm, they just played great last week, even with Harry Grant on the bench and also Big Nelson off the bench as well. Was it Big Nelson? I can't remember now. Oh, he's on the Big Nelson on the bench anyway. He's there on the bench. So there was a couple of big guns on the bench last week against the Raiders, but Harry Grant's been named in that starting side. It's a pretty strong looking side in this Melbourne Storm lineup. Still no Justin Olam, Ryan Pappenhausen. He may return by the end of the year. But I think whilst things are going well for the Storm, he can play some more football in the Queensland Cup. So just to get that match fitness back. So a lot of time out for him out of the game, obviously, and it's great to see him back in playing football. So going to be interesting, this game. I don't know if this will be a smashing. I hope the Dragons give a good showing of themselves, but I'm going to tip the Storm in that one. The second sellout of the game already, and this is Tuesday, and 2 games are sold out. The first one being the Warriors versus Sea Eagles in New Zealand, but the second one is the Knights versus the Rabbitohs. Now, who would have thought that the Knights were above the Rabbitohs at this point of year, but the Knights, well, they're just playing some great footy at the moment. This will be their 6th straight win if they can get it. The Rabbitohs, they've been struggling a bit this year. They've been on road tours. They've been to Perth, they've been to Tamworth, they've been to Cairns. This one's in Newcastle, so a little bit closer to home for them for this game, but before the bye next week. But Newcastle, they've been a little bit of a surprise packet at the moment, getting some good wins, playing some good football. They get Bradman Best back this week. Jackson Hastings has been named at halfback, his usual position, after suffering an ankle, what would you call it, strain, I guess, or a potential injury after a Jacob Preston hip drop tackle against Canterbury last week. We all probably saw that and thought that his season may be over, but great to see that he's been named. At this point in time of being named, he's probably a 50-50 chance, and the club will give him till Friday, I think, to really prove his fitness and see if he is better than 50-50. So good to see there. Jackson named there for Newcastle. Look, it's going to be a massive ask for the Rabbitohs, I think, to get this win against the Knights. Full house, full Newcastle Knight Stadium, Marathon, McDonald Jones Stadium, I should say. Thinking about Marathon Stadium back in the old days, back in the Chief days. But well, look, Kalen Ponga up against Latrell Mitchell, Alex Johnston against Dominic Young, who will score the more tries there. Campbell Graham up against Bradman Best. Look, there's some great battles there. I'm gonna go Newcastle in this one, and yeah, I'm gonna tip Newcastle in this one. Look, they're playing some great footy. It's at Newcastle, a full house. It'll be full of red and blue there. I'm going to go the Newcastle Knights against the Rabbitohs. The Raiders up against the Bulldogs in the last game of the round down in Canberra. Now, congratulations to Jared Croker, who announced his retirement for rugby league at the end of this season. He's played 305 games so far for the Raiders. Announced his retirement. He's back into the side in that centre. So, congratulations to Jared on a great career there. It's not over yet. So, the Raiders in 6th position, just hanging in there in the 8. And they will need this win. They need to win everything at the moment just to stay in that top 8. They've won 2 out of their last 5. Same with the Bulldogs as well. But the Bulldogs struggled last week against the Newcastle Knights. Had some points scored against them. The last time they played, the Raiders got the win against the Bulldogs 34-30, so close game there. The Raiders will be hoping to... They won't worry about scoring... Well, they will be worried about scoring points to win the game, but they won't be worried about scoring a lot of points. They just want to score more points than the Bulldogs to win the game, because more desperate for them is the 2 points in this competition rather than for and against. They're sitting on minus 120 at the moment, so... they will want to get this win just to get another 2 points and potentially secure their spot in the top 8 for the finals. So my tips for this week are the Cowboys, the Warriors, the Eels, the Tigers, the Panthers, the Storm, the Knights, and the Raiders. Now let's just have a quick look at the ladder. Got the Panthers up on top with equal with the Broncos, who have the bye this weekend, so they'll get the 2 points. You'd like to think that the Warriors will get the 2 points against the Sea Eagles, or I've tipped them anyway. The Storm will get the 2 points against the Dragons. So I think that'll be your top 4 for this year at the moment. The bottom of the 5, 6, 7, 8 in the top 8 is really interesting, because you have the Cowboys on 28, you have the Rabbitohs on 28. Now, I've tipped the Cowboys to win, I've tipped Newcastle to win, so that'll mean that the Cowboys will leapfrog the Rabbitohs. I've also tipped the Raiders to beat the Bulldogs, so they'll leapfrog the Sharks into 5th position, and I've tipped the Eels to beat the Roosters, so they'll go up to 28 points, so they may go up to 9th position depending on for and against. So last weekend's game against the Broncos didn't do them any favours, so they may still be in 9th position. I think it'll maybe even 10th position. So, as I said, getting smacked by the Broncos didn't help their for and against. So, some interesting games this weekend, and nothing much is happening down the bottom there. The Tigers, I've tipped the Tigers this week to beat the Dolphins, so they'll go to 14 points, 2 points off the Dragons. So, who it still maybe might be a battle for the wooden spoon. The Tigers, I'll be trying to get off that bottom. But some interesting games there, as we stand at the moment. The top 8 sees the Panthers, Broncos, Warriors, Storm, Sharks, Raiders, and Knights and Rabbitohs. So, interesting round of footy coming your way. So, hope your tips are the same. If you're listening to this, they could be different. Let me know what your tips are. Let me know what your thoughts are. And as I said, Daniel Anderson round, the NRL supporting Daniel Anderson this weekend. So if you at a game, you should be able to donate, I think, somehow. If not, just check out the NRL website and there will be a link there that you'll be able to donate online. I'll put one up during the weekend as well, so check that one out. So enjoy your footy. It's getting closer to semi-finals, and have a good weekend. Thank you very much for listening. Stay tuned for Thursday with the interview podcast back this week with former Eels, Steelers and Rabbitohs enforcer Peter the Hitman Johnston. So stay tuned for that one. Thank you very much for listening. Enjoy your footy. Go Para.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.